There was a man in the room, not the loudest, not the best dressed, not the one with the highest title on his business card. But when he spoke, everyone stopped. Not because he demanded it, not because he asked for it, because no one dared not to. You've been in that room before, maybe last week, maybe yesterday, and you felt it, that pull, that invisible weight in the air around one person. You looked at him and something inside you asked a question you didn't want to answer out loud. Why isn't that me? Here's the truth no one is telling you. It's not intelligence. It's not looks. It's not connections or luck or being born into the right family. It's something most people will never build, because most people are too afraid of what building it actually costs. A mind that terrifies, not a mind that performs, not a mind that impresses, a mind that cannot be read, cannot be moved, cannot be controlled. 500 years ago, Niccolo Machiavelli sat in a prison cell, tortured, exiled, stripped of everything he had spent his life building. And in that darkness, that absolute silence, he wrote the most dangerous document in human history. Not because it taught people how to be liked, because it taught people how to become impossible to ignore. This video is not for people who want to feel better about themselves. This is for people who want to become something that unsettles the room before they even open their mouth. If that's you, drop this in the comments right now. My mind is not for everyone. 1. What you reveal they will use against you. Society has been teaching you the wrong lesson your entire life. Be open, be vulnerable, be authentic, share your feelings, let people in. And you followed that advice. You opened up, you shared your plans. You told people what you were working on, what you feared, what you wanted more than anything. You handed them the blueprint to everything that mattered to you. And what happened? Some people used it. Some people mocked it. Some people smiled to your face and filed that information away for a moment that served them, not you. Machiavelli saw this. He saw it in the courts of Florence. He saw it in the halls of power where men who talked too much died too soon. And he understood something that most people in your life will never tell you. Every single thing you reveal about yourself is a weapon you hand to someone else. Think about that for a moment. Your plans, your fears, your limits, your desires. Each one, when revealed too early, too freely to the wrong person, becomes a tool someone else can use to steer you. When people understand you completely, they can predict you. When they can predict you, they can manage you. When they can manage you, you are no longer a threat. You are no longer interesting. You become something they have categorized, labeled, and put on a shelf. Machiavelli once said that men are so simple and so much creatures of habit that the one who seeks to deceive will always find someone willing to be deceived. He wasn't just talking about other people. He was talking about you. About the part of you that reveals too much because it mistakes openness for strength. The most powerful people in any room are not the ones with the most information. They are the ones who control what information leaves them. There are 3 levels to this. The first is your plans. Never speak about what you are building before it is built. Not to friends, not to family, not to people who claim to support you. The moment your goal leaves your mouth, it enters their mental framework. And their mental framework was not built to accommodate your ambition. It was built to accommodate their comfort. The second is your pain. Never let people know what truly hurts you. Not because the person who knows what breaks you holds something far more dangerous than a weapon. They hold a remote control, and the moment they feel threatened, they will use it. The third is your limits. Never let anyone know where you stop. The person who knows exactly how far you'll go before you push back knows exactly how far to push before you react. They will never stop at the edge. They will stop just before it, every single time. Machiavelli built an entire philosophy around this idea. Even the prince itself, presented as a gift of counsel to Lorenzo de' Medici, was actually something else entirely. It was Machiavelli's own map of power, disguised as advice. He revealed what he wanted Lorenzo to see, nothing more. The most dangerous document in the Renaissance was written by a man who understood, at the deepest level, that what you conceal is more powerful than what you declare. That is the art. You don't become mysterious by hiding in corners and refusing to speak. You become powerful by choosing with absolute precision what you allow to be seen. Here is what a powerful mind understands about information. What has been revealed can never be unrevealed. The moment someone knows something about you, you cannot take it back. You can only manage the damage. This is why the dangerous person never plays from the front of the board. They play from behind it. They let others believe they are reading them clearly. They give just enough to satisfy curiosity, just enough to appear open, just enough to seem human and accessible and warm. And behind all of that, the real strategy moves untouched. Watch the people around you carefully, the ones who share every opinion before it is fully formed, who announce every plan before it has roots, who tell you exactly what bothers them within minutes of meeting you. These are not people living freely. These are people handing out maps to anyone willing to take one. And maps get used. The fool plays with all cards face up. The master keeps the aces where no one can see them. Mystery is not silence. Mystery is precision. It is the deliberate, calculated decision about exactly how much of yourself the world deserves to see. And the answer is always less than you think. 2. Your emotions are someone else's weapon. Think about the last time you changed your mind, not because someone gave you better information, not because logic shifted, but because of a look. One look from one person. Disappointment, disapproval, mild annoyance flickering across someone's face. And you adjusted. You pulled back. You softened what you were about to say. You made yourself smaller to fit the shape of what they needed you to be. That moment, that exact moment, that is the leash tightening. Most people never recognize it. They call it empathy. They call it social awareness. They call it being a good person. But Machiavelli had another word for it. He called it a confession. Every emotional reaction you display in public is a confession. When you rage, you confess that someone found the wire. When you beg, you confess that you need something they have. When you celebrate too loudly, you confess where your ego lives. When you flinch at criticism, you confess exactly which insecurity to press next time. Emotional reactions are not honesty. They are exposure. And in any environment where power is being negotiated, exposure is defeat. Here is something history proves that your teachers never taught you. The generals who won the great wars did not cry when their soldiers fell. The rulers who built empires did not scream when they were betrayed. They went still. They watched. They processed in private. And then they returned fire, not with noise, but with something far more terrifying. Decisive, cold, calculated consequence. When Julius Caesar was surrounded by 23 men he had called brothers, when the daggers began to fall, he did not scream. He did not beg. He pulled his toga over his face. In the final seconds of his life, with everything collapsing around him, he was still managing the image, still controlling what people would see, still choosing what to reveal and what to conceal. Even in death, he did not give them his expression. That is a level of emotional discipline most people will never understand, because they have been taught that emotional expression is authenticity, that letting people see you break is somehow noble. It is not noble. It is dangerous. And it is dangerous because emotion is predictable. What is predictable can be controlled. The moment you react emotionally, someone else is steering you. You feel like you are expressing yourself. You are actually being directed. Drop this in the comments right now. I don't react. I decide. Because that is the shift. That is the line between being the clay and being the sculptor. Here is what most people misunderstand about emotional control. They think it means feeling nothing. It does not. It means feeling everything and revealing nothing. It means training your anger to burn cold, not to go out. Cold, focused, patient, like a fire that has been contained and directed rather than allowed to spread in every direction and destroy everything, including you. It means training your sadness to sharpen thought rather than dissolve it. Grief can be fuel, humiliation can be a compass, fear can be information, but only if you refuse to let it flood the mind. The moment emotion floods the mind, the position of advantage is gone. The people who understand this watch for something specific in others. A twitch at the corner of the mouth, a breath that rises slightly too fast, a jaw that tightens before the words do. These are not small things. These are windows. And through those windows, the observer reads exactly what the emotional person is trying to hide. And in that moment, when the other person becomes emotional, the powerful mind does not attack physically. That would be crude. It does not even speak necessarily. It shifts. It uses influence, or silence, or a single decision made quietly that reverberates for months. Here is the reversal that changes everything. People do not fear rage. They understand rage. They know what to do with it. They have a script for the person who shouts, who threatens, who demands. But they have no script for the person who absorbs an attack and responds with absolute stillness. No defense, no counterattack, just a face that reveals nothing. Eyes that do not drop, a posture that does not shift. That stillness terrifies people because it suggests something they cannot calculate, depth they cannot measure, a game being played on a level they cannot see. When someone insults you, do not defend. When someone praises you, do not melt. Accept both with the same face, the same voice, the same pace. There is a pattern you will begin to notice once you develop this discipline. The people who try hardest to provoke a reaction from you are the people who feel most threatened by your stillness. They are not attacking you, they are testing the walls. Looking for a crack, looking for proof that underneath the composure, there is something they can reach, something they can move. Give them nothing. Let them exhaust themselves against a surface that does not shift. This is what power looks like from the outside. Not the person who reacts to everything, the person who reacts to nothing you expect. A man who controls his anger does not avoid war. He chooses when. He decides where. He determines the cost his enemies will pay. And when the response finally comes, it does not arrive as a reaction. It arrives as a sentence, deliberate, irreversible, and without a trace of apology. Free. Feed on what others are afraid to touch. The average person builds their mind for comfort. They fill it with things that confirm what they already believe. Books that remind them they are good people. Ideas that reinforce that the world, if everyone just tried hard enough, would be fair. Philosophies that soften the sharp edges of reality into something manageable. And that is exactly why they remain manageable. Machiavelli did the opposite, not because he was cruel, because he was honest in a way that most people will never allow themselves to be. He looked at history without flinching. He read the narratives that others dressed up and sanitized and turned into legends. And then he went looking for the version underneath, the one no one wanted to tell, the one where the hero was also capable of monstrous things, the one where the villain understood something the rest of the world refused to learn. He fed on what others spit out before it could touch their tongues. And that diet built a mind that 5 centuries later still terrifies political scientists, still makes philosophers uncomfortable, still gets assigned in universities with a kind of nervous warning before the syllabus begins. That is the power of consuming what others refuse. Here is what most people instinctively avoid: painful knowledge, the kind that dismantles something you believed; inconvenient history, the kind that does not allow you to stay innocent; the mechanics of how people actually manipulate each other, not how they should behave, how they do. The human mind fears discomfort more than it fears ignorance. Most people would rather be distracted than disturbed. They would rather scroll than sit with something that challenges their self-image. And so they remain in a fog, a comfortable, warm, well-lit fog. But the person outside the fog can see everything inside it. Sun Tzu did not study how armies win. He studied how armies collapse. Every word of The Art of War is written from inside the perspective of destruction. Understanding failure at the deepest level was what made him the most referenced military thinker in history. Not optimism, not inspiration, autopsy. That is the approach. Study history not for the glory but for the collapse. Read not about how civilizations thrived, but about the exact moment they began to rot from within, and why no one noticed until it was too late. Read about betrayal, not as a cautionary tale, but as a manual. Understand the psychology of the person who smiled for years before they moved. Understand the logic of the smiling man with a knife behind his back, because that understanding is armor. Do not confine your reading to what is considered acceptable. Go further. Study propaganda. Not to become a propagandist, to become immune to one. Understand how crowds are moved, how beliefs are planted, how people choose the comfortable lie over the uncomfortable truth every single time. And more importantly, understand why they want to. Because that want, that hunger for illusion, is one of the most powerful forces in human behavior. And the person who understands it from the outside holds an advantage that cannot be bought. Robert Greene spent years compiling the patterns of power across centuries of history. Not to celebrate them, to understand them. Because understanding the pattern of how power actually moves, how it concentrates, how it shifts and corrupts and rewards and destroys, gives you a map that most people never even know exists. Psychology is not a therapeutic tool in this context. It is a framework for seeing clearly. Learn the fears that drive the herd. Learn how scarcity shapes behavior. Learn how status anxiety makes otherwise intelligent people act against their own interests. Learn how emotion overrides reason in the vast majority of human decisions. With that knowledge, you move through the world differently, not with aggression, with precision. Most people consume content that makes them feel seen, feel validated, feel part of something. And there is nothing wrong with that, except for one problem. It keeps the lens pointed inward, at their own feelings, their own narrative, their own reflection. The mind that terrifies does the opposite. It points the lens outward. It becomes a student of human nature, not to understand itself better, but to understand the machinery that moves everyone else. That shift from inward to outward focus changes everything about how you experience any room you walk into. There is a cost to this. Be honest with yourself about it. The more clearly you see, the less you can unsee. The more you understand about how people actually operate, the harder it becomes to watch them without that understanding filtering everything. You will sit in conversations and see things others are not aware of. You will watch someone explain their motivation, while their actual motivation sits right on the surface for anyone trained to see it. And you will say nothing, because what would be the point? The sleeping mind is not your problem to solve. Every person who refuses to examine the machinery of their own behavior becomes one more element in an environment you are learning to read. Your education has to be ruthless, not academic, not safe, not designed to make you feel enlightened in a comfortable way. The goal is not to accumulate credentials. The goal is to see the terrain as it actually is, and then move through it with the kind of clarity that comes from having looked at every uncomfortable corner without flinching. The world is not governed by the hopeful. It is governed by the informed. And information of the kind that others refuse to touch becomes something no one can take from you. 4. Watch more, talk less. Every room has two types of people. The first type is managing their impression. They are thinking about how they sound, whether they're coming across as confident, whether the right people are noticing them, whether what they just said landed the way they intended. They are performing, and while they perform, they are completely, utterly blind to everything happening around them. The second type is collecting. Every hesitation they observe, every overcorrection, every laugh that comes half a second too late, every sentence that started one way and shifted suddenly into something safer. They are reading the room like a document, and by the time the conversation ends, they know things about every person present that those people do not know about themselves. Which type do you think leaves with more power? This is the observer advantage, and most people will never develop it because it requires them to stop performing, and stopping the performance feels, at first, like disappearing, like becoming invisible in a way that terrifies the ego. But here is the truth that Machiavelli understood from years of watching the most powerful people in Florence operate. The man who speaks least in a room does not disappear. He becomes the center of gravity. Everyone else begins to orbit around the question of what he is thinking. Silence creates a vacuum, and people rush to fill vacuums. They overshare, they explain too much, they reveal things they had no intention of revealing. All because the quiet person in the corner has not yet delivered a verdict, and that undelivered verdict becomes the thing everyone in the room is quietly working toward. Machiavelli had no army, no inherited wealth, no title that commanded automatic respect. What he had was observation refined into an instrument. He watched the men who held power in Florence, not to admire them, but to understand them. He catalogued their fears, their vanities, their hunger for validation, their blind spots. And he understood them more completely than they understood themselves. That is a form of power that cannot be confiscated, cannot be voted away, cannot be exiled. Here is what people reveal without knowing they are revealing anything. When someone talks too much, they are managing anxiety. When someone explains their decision before you have questioned it, they are seeking permission they have already convinced themselves they do not need. When someone attacks without provocation, something you represent is threatening something they are trying to protect. Every overreaction is a map. Every deflection is a door. Every moment of excessive confidence is a wall built around a specific kind of fear. The observer does not announce that they are reading these signals. That would collapse the advantage immediately. The observer simply watches and stores and waits. In the first 5 minutes of any meeting, any conversation, any social situation, say less than you feel the urge to say. Not because you have nothing to contribute, because those 5 minutes of observation will make everything you contribute afterward more precise, more targeted, more effective. Ask questions that reveal more than they ask, not interrogating questions, curious questions, questions that open a space the other person feels compelled to fill. And while they fill it, you learn far more than any direct question would have given you. Pay attention to what is not said, the pause before a name is mentioned, the subject that gets skipped over in a story that should include it, the qualification that appears every time a certain topic comes up. The gaps in what someone tells you are often more informative than the words themselves. And watch the body when the words are performing. The voice can be coached, the face can be trained, but the hands, the breathing, the weight that shifts from foot to foot when a certain subject arises, those are harder to manage. Those are where the truth lives when the mouth has been instructed to say something else. Here is something worth testing this week. Go into your next important conversation with one specific intention. Speak 30% less than you normally would, not because you have less to say, because you are creating space. Watch what happens in that space. Watch how quickly people begin to fill it in ways they did not plan. Watch how the dynamic shifts when you are no longer the one driving the pace of the exchange. You will feel the pull to speak. Resist it a little longer than is comfortable. And in that resistance, something important will become visible. People do not fear the person who shouts at them. They can handle shouting. They have a script for it. They fear the person who sits quietly and watches with an expression that reveals nothing, because that expression suggests something they cannot calculate. It suggests that conclusions are being drawn that they cannot influence or redirect. That uncertainty, that inability to get a clear reading, That is where your power begins. When you leave a conversation, you should know more about the other person than they know about you. When you leave a room, people should have more questions about you than answers. When your name comes up in conversation later, the sentence should not be able to finish cleanly. That unfinished sentence, that open question, that is where your power lives. 5. Approval is the leash you keep handing them. Imagine a puppet, not the wooden kind on a theater stage, the kind that walks around in business casual, that has opinions at dinner, that believes completely it is making its own decisions. The strings are invisible. They are pulled by the disappointed look of a parent, by the silence of a room that expected agreement, by the low hum of anxiety that arrives whenever you consider doing something that no one around you has done before. Most people live and die inside those strings. They never feel them because they have never tried to move in a direction the strings do not allow. Have you ever tried? The need for approval is not a personality trait. It is an addiction. And like every addiction, it was designed by something external to keep you returning, spending, complying. Society offers praise for obedience, warmth for conformity, belonging for staying inside the acceptable shape of what you are supposed to be. And the brain responds exactly the way it responds to any chemical reward. It wants more. It organizes behavior around getting more. It begins to interpret the absence of approval as a kind of pain. And then someone else holds the supply, and you are theirs. Every time you soften your opinion to avoid their discomfort, you hand them the leash. Every time you stay quiet because the room might not be ready for what you actually think, you hand them the leash. Every time you wait to see how they react before deciding how you feel, you hand them the leash. You do it so automatically, so smoothly, that it no longer feels like a choice. It feels like just how things work. That is how complete the conditioning is. Machiavelli understood this as a mechanism of control more powerful than any army. He watched rulers who were beloved and rulers who were feared. And he made a distinction that made his contemporaries deeply uncomfortable. The beloved ruler was always in some way dependent on the continued love of the people whose love he needed. Remove that love, and the ruler collapsed inward. The feared ruler answered to something else, something internal, and that internal foundation was not subject to the mood of the crowd. Here is something to sit with. Think about the last time you changed your position on something, not because new information arrived, but because of the look on someone's face. Just the look, disappointment, mild disapproval, the faint sense that they expected something different from you. And you adjusted without being asked, without a single word being spoken. That is not empathy. That is the leash tightening. The path out of it is not comfortable. Let that be clear from the beginning. When you begin to detach from approval, the first thing that happens is not freedom. The first thing that happens is discomfort that feels identical to wrongness. Your entire nervous system has been trained to interpret the absence of approval as danger. And so when you begin to act from purpose instead of from the need to be validated, your body treats it like a threat. This is where most people stop. They mistake the discomfort of withdrawal for evidence that they have made a mistake. They return to performing. They return to managing impressions. They return to being what the room needs them to be. The ones who push through discover something on the other side of that discomfort. Clarity. Genuine, uncluttered clarity about what they actually think, what they actually want, what they are actually willing to do. Carl Jung called the process of becoming truly yourself individuation, a confrontation with everything you have constructed to be acceptable to others. The persona, the mask, the curated version of self that gets brought out in public. Jung said that real strength begins when you stop identifying with the mask and start discovering what exists underneath it. Machiavelli said something similar in far less gentle language. A prince who depends entirely on the goodwill of others has built his foundation on something that others control, and anything others control, others can take. Build the foundation inside yourself, and then nothing outside can reach it. There is a specific moment when you will know the shift has happened. It is not dramatic. It arrives quietly in a moment when someone you respect expresses disappointment in a decision you have made, and you feel the familiar pull to adjust. And then you feel something else underneath it. A stillness. A place inside that does not move. That stillness is not indifference. It is the foundation Machiavelli was describing. The internal ground that other people's opinions cannot reach. You will be tested when you start doing this. People who have been comfortable with your compliance will not be comfortable with your independence. They will call it arrogance. They will call it coldness. What they are actually telling you is that you have become harder to manage. And that difficulty is precisely the goal. Every moment you let someone be disappointed without restructuring yourself around their disappointment, you grow. Every moment you choose the direction your own internal compass points over the direction the room is pulling you, you grow. Approval is a prison disguised as warmth. The walls are made of other people's comfort, and the key has always been on your side of the door. Stop handing them the leash. 6. Never announce who you're becoming. Watch what happens when people decide to change. They tell everyone, "New year, new me, I'm working on myself. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I'm in a different place now. Watch this space." And then they wait for the acknowledgement, for the encouragement, for someone to validate the announcement before the change has actually happened. This is not transformation. This is performance of transformation. And there is a difference that most people never examine closely enough to see. When you announce that you are changing, you immediately create an audience. And an audience creates a different problem. Now you are not transforming for yourself, you are performing a transformation for the people watching. Every step of the process gets filtered through their reaction. Their encouragement becomes fuel. Their skepticism becomes an obstacle. Their attention becomes the thing you are, without realizing it, working to maintain. The transformation is no longer yours. Machiavelli understood this from his own life in a way that most people would never willingly experience. After the Medici returned to power, after he was arrested, after he was tortured on the strappado and barely survived it, after he was released and banished to his small family farm outside Florence, he disappeared. Not dramatically. He did not write letters announcing his return. He did not build a public persona around his suffering or his resilience. He went to his farm. He talked to woodcutters during the day. He read Latin and Greek at night, sitting in his study in formal robes as if meeting the ancient writers as equals. He processed, he thought, he rebuilt. And in that silence, with no audience, with no one watching, with nothing to perform for, the Prince was written. By the time anyone understood what he had created, it was complete. It was already too late to stop it. That is the model. Transformation requires the absence of an audience, because the presence of an audience changes what you are doing. It introduces a variable that is not yours. It invites comparison between who you said you would become and who you are right now in this moment. And that comparison is almost always premature and almost always paralyzing. The person who transforms silently has something the person who announces their journey does not. Uninterrupted momentum. There is no one to satisfy before the work is done. There is no external measure being applied while the internal process is still incomplete. There is only the work, and when the work is finished, it does not need an introduction. Look at the people in your life who have changed in ways that genuinely shifted something, not the people who posted about their transformation journey. The ones who simply appeared one day as something unmistakably different. You felt it before you could explain it. Something in their posture, their pace, the way they occupied space. They did not announce that they had become something new. They simply were it. And the absence of announcement made it more powerful, not less. The change that terrifies is the change that arrives without warning. without a build-up that allowed others to prepare for it, to categorize it, to reduce it into something manageable before it could fully form. Silent transformation is not isolation. It is strategy. You are not hiding from the world. You are protecting the process from contamination, because other people's expectations, even when they come wrapped in support, are still other people's expectations. And other people's expectations are another kind of string. Weak minds announce, strong minds arrive. When you have changed, truly changed, in the way that matters, you will not need to tell anyone. They will feel it in the first 30 seconds of any interaction. They will not be able to explain it. They will try to articulate it, and the words will not quite fit. That gap between what they feel and what they can explain is not an accident. That gap is exactly where your power lives. Let them wonder. Let them try to catch up to a version of you that is already no longer the most recent one. Let the mystery of who you are becoming remain unresolved for everyone except you, because the moment they think they understand you completely, you have already given something away that you cannot get back. 7. Say nothing. Win everything. Most people are terrified of silence. They feel it begin to form in a conversation, and something in them moves immediately to fill it. Words, explanations, nervous laughter. An opinion that was not necessary, but arrived anyway, because the silence felt like a verdict being delivered. Because silence to the unprepared mind feels like something is wrong. But the prepared mind knows something different. Silence has weight, real physical atmospheric weight. And when used with precision, it does not just speak, it interrogates. Think about what happens in a room when one person says something provocative and another person simply does not respond, does not defend, does not deny, does not fill the space with justification, just holds the silence and lets it sit there. The person who spoke begins to recalibrate. Did they go too far? Did they misread the situation? What does that silence mean? What is being calculated behind that expression? And in that recalibration, something shifts. The person who said the provocative thing begins, quietly, to doubt themselves, begins to pull back, begins to offer concessions that were never requested. That is not passivity. That is one of the most active things a person can do in a conversation. Machiavelli never wrote a chapter on silence because he did not need to. Every piece of tactical advice he offered assumed it. The prince who acts decisively without over-explaining. The advisor who withholds reaction until the moment of maximum advantage. The strategist who allows the enemy to exhaust themselves before making a single move. Silence is not the absence of power. It is power itself, wearing a face that reveals nothing. Stalin would sometimes sit through entire briefings without speaking, without moving, without any signal that he had registered what was being said. And the generals in that room, men with more military knowledge than almost any gathering in history, would begin to perform for the silence. They would adjust their reports. They would add qualifications they had not planned to add. They would answer questions that had not been asked. All because the silence felt like a presence, a judgment that had not yet been delivered. By the time Stalin spoke, if he spoke at all, the dynamic in the room had already shifted completely, without a single word. That is the weapon. When you are accused of something, silence does not confess, it collects. It allows the accusation to hang in the air and begin to lose its shape. The person who accused you begins to wonder if they have the full picture. They begin to fill the silence with their own doubt. When you are asked a question that carries an agenda inside it, silence delays the answer long enough to see the question from every angle. A 3-second pause before responding to a loaded question tells the person asking it that you are not operating on their timeline, that you are not available to be rushed. When someone offers you praise, silence does not melt into it. It receives it with the same face that receives everything else. And that equanimity signals something that flattery cannot buy and pressure cannot move. When you choose to walk away from something, silence does not explain the departure. It simply departs, and the absence of explanation keeps the interpretation in your control. You leave a space, and what they fill that space with will tell you everything about what they actually feared you were thinking. There is also a quality of presence that silence builds over time. When you are known as someone who does not speak unnecessarily, your words begin to carry a different weight. People listen differently. They lean in slightly when you begin to speak, because they have learned from experience that what comes out of your mouth was chosen, not performed, not filled to cover discomfort, chosen. And that quality of attention is a form of authority that cannot be faked and cannot be demanded. It has to be earned, one unnecessary word withheld at a time. The next time someone says something that provokes a response in you, wait, not forever, just longer than feels comfortable. Sit with the discomfort of the pause, let it breathe. And then from that stillness, choose your words the way a surgeon chooses where to cut. With precision, with the absolute minimum necessary to accomplish exactly what needs to be accomplished. Nothing more. Because every unnecessary word is information you handed over for free. Every explanation that was not required is a window into your thinking that you opened without anyone asking you to. The terrifying mind does not fill rooms with its voice. It fills rooms with its presence. And when it finally speaks, every word lands the way a word only lands when the silence before it has been long enough to make the room lean in. You came to this video as one person. You are leaving as someone different. Even if you cannot feel it yet, the shift happened somewhere in the watching. In the moment, a sentence landed not like new information, but like something you already knew that had finally been named. You now understand that what you reveal, they will use against you. That you protect your plans, your pain, and your limits the way you protect anything that matters. You now understand that your emotional reactions are not authenticity, they are openings. And you choose who gets to see through them. You now understand that the knowledge others refuse to consume is not dangerous. It is advantage, and you are willing to consume it. You now understand that the most powerful person in any room is not the one performing, it is the one watching. You now understand that approval is not connection, it is a leash. And you are done handing it over. You now understand that transformation does not announce itself. It arrives, quietly, completely. Without warning, you now understand that silence is not emptiness. It is the most precise weapon available to a mind that has learned how to use it. The world will test everything you just absorbed. Starting today, someone will try to read you. Someone will try to provoke a reaction. Someone will wait for you to explain yourself. Do not. If this video reached something real in you, hit the like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe, because what comes next goes even deeper into this. And drop this in the comments before you leave. I am the most dangerous person in any room because no one can read me. You have been building this mind your entire life. Now you know what you are building toward.